Welcome to a special edition of Empowered Minds, Fueling Education, a place where you get to meet us and we get to meet you. Let's go. Welcome to this special edition of Empowered Minds, Fueling Education. This week we have Latasha Fowlkes, President and CEO of the Core Collective. And we have our past President of the Joint Executive Governing Board for Normandy Schools Collaborative, Mr. Ronald Roberts. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Doing good. Glad to be here.
Good. Ms. Fowlkes, tell us a little bit about the Core Collective.
The Core Collective is an organization that is in Normandy. We've been around for over 170 years. If you ask me, we've been around during some of the most critical times of the community and always adjusting to meet the needs of the community. So most recently, we went through a visioning project and really started to think about the best way to serve our community, in particular the students who attend Normandy School District. So we offer a variety of services, including transitional living program for older youth who are aging out of foster care, counseling and case management services for youth ages 6 and older, including their family members, as well as a drop-in center and other wide variety of other supportive services that holistically serve our community.
In this day and age where strategic partnership means a whole lot because a lot is missing. There are things we can do at school, but there are things that we can do externally that we should do it externally to support kids better and to provide support for parents. And I think this partnership really does a lot of that work. Mr. Roberts, as I think about as I think about collaborating with a partner like the Core Collective, a lot of people don't understand what that means. But we've had some conversations around what that means. How can, at the district level, what does that mean for board members to buy into this concept around that kind of support for everyone?
Mm-hmm. Well, Normandy, as you're aware, has had its set of issues over decades. But the most notable is when we lost accreditation. We're now provisionally accredited, but over time that's been a heavy lift, and time is not really a friend of ours. So we have to shorten the runway of those elements, those things that will get us to that accreditation, and then also creating a healthy environment for kids to learn. I think that as a board member, what I observed is that it's critically important to rally around the superintendent. Particularly with someone in your position who have a lot of things stacked up against you in a very short period of time to deliver some exceptional results. That's going to take a lot of innovation. It's going to take a lot of flexibility, but intentionality. And, when we were going through the process of identifying a superintendent, the key attributes that you had was speed to trust. And because if they can't trust you, then nobody's going to lock arms with you, whether it's at a decelerated or accelerated path. And I think the board members are very active on the Normandy School Board. They're very hands-on, but that has a structure to it. Being hands-on with the superintendent, being in lockstep with opportunities for innovation and support. So it's very critical that when we say partnerships, the board has to recognize its partnership with the superintendent, and the superintendent being able to carry out your responsibilities, his responsibilities, her responsibilities in terms of managing the district towards a greater place.
And not only partnerships, but the right partnerships, right? We can have a plethora of partnerships, but are they supporting our children the way they need to be supported? Not the way that the partnership think they need to be supported, but the true way that our children need to be supported, right?
Yeah, and I think like the Core Collective, and there are other strategic partners in the area too. But one thing I really recognize about the Core Collective is that how they can immediately respond to needs. I've been in situations where I've heard Latasha negotiate some housing in a situation for one of their clients, and it was, they had to make a decision and they had to move pretty quickly. We spend a lot of our resources on there are a lot of kids in our community that are in the foster system, or just quite frankly homeless. And I've seen where your staff has had to rent hotels and so forth. So that kind of collaboration between the Core Collective and Normandy is extremely important, because if you can stabilize a housing environment, then you achieve great outcomes in terms of education and other needs.
When I, Ms. Fowlkes, when I think back on being a social worker, right, I would absolutely scrap at the notion of having a one-stop shop. And I think that when we start talking about accreditation, and a lot of people don't understand what all lends to accreditation, and there's a parental piece, there's an attendance piece, right? And a lot of things also, there's a lot of sub areas under those two umbrellas. So, Ms. Fowlkes, when you start talking about your support, the Core Collective support in Normandy schools students, what does that look like for the parents to better become engaged in the school process? Because now they have supports on that end, and then students are getting support not only in school but after hours, where they spend time at home, and on the weekends where they spend time at home, and they have a center like yours to really channel some of that energy.
Yeah, I think it can look like a lot of things. I think most importantly is, if we're going to talk about having healthy kids who are having great educational outcomes and health outcomes, we have to make sure that we're expanding our reach to serve their parents, right? Not only, and really being able to define what family looks like for kids, because it may not be their biological parents, it may be an aunt, it may be a grandmother, it may be a grandfather, right? Understanding who is their next caretaker, making sure that we create space for them to have their basic needs met. Right? No parent is going to be able to focus if they don't have a roof over their head, if they don't have food in their home to take care of the kids, if they're struggling to see their kids have clothing to go to school and dress appropriately. Like, these are things that really interfere with their ability to focus in on education. And I think that it also creates space for organizations like ours to really reevaluate what we do. And when we did that, we said, hey, these are the things that the Core Collective does well. But if we're going to expand our reach, and if we're going to serve parents in a way that is meaningful, we have to partner with other organizations and do that very well. It was not about the quantity of services that we have, but about the quality of services that we brought to the Core Collective so that we can better serve parents, children, grandparents, and families. I think that creating space for them to get counseling and have their mental health needs met, whether there was substance abuse or domestic violence, a space for them to be heard, to say, these are the things that I have going on in my household. These are all of the things that I am managing. I need help and support. And that help and support should not have to go through the police department necessarily. It should not have to go through the Department of Children and Family Services for them to be able to access resources. We really do need to create a one-stop shop that eliminates the transportation barrier for parents, that is closely connected in the communities in which they live, that have all of the service providers under one roof, really focusing on community impact. I think that is a game changer for the community. And one of the things that I love about your leadership style is that you seem to be open to being creative and innovative to our approach to serving our youth better.
And I think that's the part that's missing, is that we spend a ton of money, a ton of energy and a ton of resources around providing students with social emotional care. But we tend to forget about the parents, right? The adults. And so that whole wraparound services, we're not just talking about students, we're talking about parents and adults. And so when we don't provide a diagnosis and care to the source, everything in between leaks. And so we have to provide those parents with the necessary resources and equip them better, right? So I absolutely love what the Core Collective does and what it's intended to do. Ron, when it comes to the district, and when I say the district, I'm talking about I have 7 bosses. So I have to appease 7 people with 7 different personalities. But we have to be a team of 8, right? And we have to be a team of 8 in this work. And so how do we as a collective 8, one, support 2 audiences in this instance, right? We support the district and we support the Core Collective. Because what I don't like is that we have a ton of MOUs, a ton of resources, and there's a lot of duplication of services. So we have to narrow that down. How do we fit, or how do we build that relationship between the two, and the board not being seen as in the weeds and making decisions and those, but because their voices are needed through the superintendent. So how do we?
Yeah, that's a tough one, because as a board member, there's a lot of passion and a lot of commitment there. I severely underestimated what being a board member, particularly in Normandy, was about. But being passionate, being respectful, because even if you disagree and your views are divergent, you have to coalesce or align on something, and that's the kids in the community and their families. Right. And I try not to say that often, because if you have to say that this is for the kids, then there's something about that. That's stating the obvious. Uh-huh. So the passion that is in the commitment that's required for that partnership between the board and the superintendent to work, it has to be respectful. It has to be intentional, and even when you don't agree on the end game, and it's going to be impactful. I may not be supportive of it. I may vote no, but you got the majority votes. And I'm only voting no because of a component, not necessarily because of the individual that brought it to me, or that the program lacks merit. So being very critical of the execution of a program and the end game, and then say, okay, now that we've approved this, then let's go. If it's not approved, then why? And let's talk about it. And then you do your work to come back to us, or go back to the board. It's like, all right, there's some things I could have tightened up. I did that. Please reconsider. So it's that kind of intentional communication, that respectful, professional maturity, and professional courtesy, that when there's a disagreement, that we're trying to move past it to see what the roadblock is. And then once we identify what the roadblock is, then what's the end game? Do we scrap it, or do we go forward? So in my short tenure as a board member, there were times where that passion was misunderstood. It was taken out of context, but I took it upon myself to, like, okay, because you and I, we've had many heated arguments, but at the end of the day, we were fighting for the same things. Now we might fight against each other to prove our points. And I am a little bigger than you, so I usually win. But no, man, it was because I respect you, and I respect your background, and I respect what you do, and I know it's genuine. Then I can, that puts me at ease when I can be very passionate and unedited about how I'm feeling about something. So long story short, the partnership between the board members and the superintendent is critical, as when board members understand their role and responsibility, how they are supposed to execute within certain parameters, and then support you to let you do what you do.
Yeah, yeah. So this is Robert Goulet. You know, this is his nickname, Robert Goulet, and I'm Morgan Freeman. So we had the whole concept of lean on me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but we still at the end, we still go and eat.
Listen, can I add something to that? Because in my role as a CEO from a nonprofit space, and I also report to a board, I think we have a bold, new, exciting vision. And I think what it looks like, what I need from my board, and I'm sure what you need from your board, is when you are tackling complex problems, you need a board that's going to support you on the journey, right? And sometimes that journey looks beautiful, and then sometimes it doesn't. But keeping a calmness and focus even through those tough parts is super important to the leader of the organization or the leader of the school. You need to know that people stand behind you. Right, and you need to know that even if it is a wrong decision that was made, you need people to know that you're going to do your best to recalibrate and fix that problem. But you need them through that. You need them through the good times, and you need them through the tough times. And that is what's going to make for a longer term sustainable impact in the work that you do.
And if I could add one more thing, the being supportive of the opportunity for innovation, right? And when I hear like, well, this is how we used to do it, and it's like hearing a chalkboard being scratched, because how we used to do it, I don't know what that means. I mean, what do we need to do now in order to shorten the runway to achieve that goal? And I think with the Core Collective, I think that was amazing how you went from St. Vincent in this community and everybody to the Core Collective at St. Vincent. That was a heavy lift. I mean, I'm pretty sure that, all the wounds you got for trying to deliver that. And much like when I got this idea, what do you think? What do you think how can I win support for this idea? And then we have that discussion amongst the board members. And then it's, well, we used to do it this way. No, I think we need to try something different, because apparently that didn't work as impactful. It wasn't as impactful as we thought it would be, and we need something extraordinarily impactful to take us to where we need to go.
So there is a narrative circling education, period. And it causes teachers to leave in droves, right? And the issues are if I was to term a coin, all of the issues and concerns in one word, it would be crisis, okay? And you can put everything under crisis. So there are recent events around crisis that really lends to the need for this kind of partnership. You have school shootings, you have other things that go on in schools, like fighting and assault on adults and or children to children, a grown person to children, and children to grown people. So there's a lot of concerns there. So all schools are in crisis, and Normandy is not germane to Normandy. And so, Ms. Fowlkes, when we start talking about a school like Normandy, a district like Normandy, Normandy does have a plethora of resources, not only in its partnership, but we have resources on our campuses. However, those resources have a tendency of either stopping or shutting down slowly after school hours on the weekends. This is where a partnership like the Core Collective can really pick up and provide that round-the-clock kind of service to our students. Can you tell us about how we could kind of tie into that to help out? Because these things help. I'm telling you, they help with things like attendance, right? And things like having our kids come to school emotionally prepared for learning. And then it helps our teachers be more confident in teaching, right? And in fact, they may need some of that emotional support.
Absolutely. I think the Core Collective landed where we are at in this space is because we heard the voices of the community. We listened to our kids, we listened to our parents, we listened to other providers, we listened to teachers, we listened to the school system. And we heard loud and clear that they said, hey, it's great to be here for 9 to 5, but most parents are at work. What are they going to do when they get off work? Who's going to be open? Who can the kids go and see after school? Who can provide all of these things? And so for us, it was really important. Again, when you talk about partnership, we talk about like strategic partnership. Because if you are not a partner who's willing to come in and work those after hours to meet the needs of families, if you're not willing to have the weekend hours to provide the support, this may not be at the core collective. It may not be the right strategic partnership for you, because we really did evolve our organization to meet the needs of the community in which we heard from our children and our parents and our families. We are open 24 hours a day. We always have a staff on board ready to take a phone call to hear, what is needed. What do you have going on? How can we divert you from having to call the police? How can we divert you from having this issue escalate where DCFS or any others have to get involved? How can we start to provide this interference so that parents want what we want. They want to have the health and well-being of their family be intact. And sometimes we have to listen to them to know even what their well-being looks like. Their well-being doesn't look the same as what I would think it would look like. It's really self-defined, and we have to provide this engagement with parents and families to be able to do that. We need partners on our team who are willing to go at it the same kind of way. It's not going to look like what we felt like it looked like. It's only going to look like what parents and the youth really feel like helps support them.
I think that there's one machine we haven't talked about that I hope the core collective can get. So every day at around 12 o'clock, I need some place where I can just come and stick my head in and have my whole head massaged.
We're working on that too. Just to be clear.
The one thing I love about Normandy Schools Collaborative is that its board is truly passion oriented, and everyone has their own level of passion, whatever it is, but it's passion nonetheless, and it's passion for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. So I can never say I can never say they were passionate about the wrong stuff, which always draw me back in to say, okay, they're passionate and they're passionate about the right things. So what do I need to do differently? So Ryan, with you experiencing that board level passion, with you experiencing my level of passion and the needs for our community, what does it mean to marry those two levels of passion for the need of the community?
It's one thing it means. One is there, it exists, which is good. Two, making sure that the rules of engagement are understood and respected, and what the plan is for the outcome. Because if you stay focused on those things, then that energy and that passion doesn't become unproductive. It stays productive and constructive. I think that with I was able to develop some really good relationships with board members, and had never met many of them, but it seems like we'll have a lifelong friendship as a result of that experience. And I know where they are. I know I spent a lot of time trying to get to know an individual so I can really understand their communication style and not take it personal or be offended by something that just sounds like I don't agree with. Yeah. And I think this new board, because we've gone from an appointed board, so now it's fully elected. Everybody is picked by the community. And I think you got some really good leadership there. I think Harlan is going to, he's measured, but he's very proactive. William has a lot of experience, institutional knowledge. Ms. Pearson has, the ear of the younger alumni, and she's a board member, a parent, and an alumnus of the school. So she sees it from all lenses, and she sees it, and she's very passionate and creative about thoughts about tackling some of these problems. I think where it becomes unproductive, and I've had to check myself, like a lot of times, I'm getting passionate, I'm getting, the energy is full of, I'm feeling this with my energy, but I'm losing sight of what the end game is, right? And then that's when I got to check myself, or after one of our knockdown dragouts, you got to, hey, I appreciate that passion, but that's not quite, I think if you understood these points, I was like, oh, you're right. So then I put that passion in the right place. So encouraging the energy, the passion, the respect, and getting to know folks. I mean,
no pun intended.
No pun intended. Right. Right. Because the more you know about them, and the more you know how to communicate with somebody, to try to, understand the communication style. I mean, respect is a given.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no levels to disrespect. Disrespect is disrespect, and that's not tolerated. But it becomes abundantly clear, how that energy and that passion is productive when everybody's focused on the same goal and achieve the same result.
As we come to close, Ms. Fowlkes, when I was first introduced to you and you had a conversation with me about the Core Collective, I was absolutely blown away. Now, I was blown away. My lens is different than many superintendents. I actually came through the ranks. But one position I really identify with in my dealings with people is my social work experience. And so that really caught me in our conversations. So tell the viewers and the listeners about how the Core Collective add value not only to the Normandy Schools Collaborative, but the community at large, because I think that's the piece that will lend to Normandy Schools Collaborative.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways that we help support the community at large. I think in general, we sit on 22 acres of land with a 100,000 square foot building with tons of resources in it, a full gymnasium, art studio, a walking track, and really all of the supportive services that can go along with it. And we really thought deeply about making sure that we opened up our doors to serve community. And that when we open up our doors to serve community, that we were going to bring in other partners who not only did this work well, but some of the ones who are the best in the game at it. And that we were going to put them in one location and pair this with a housing opportunity so that people not only had a place to live, but they had a place to heal and a place to thrive. And that is, to me, the core of some of the work that we do, but we can offer the supportive services through counseling, through mental health, through case management, or honestly just getting a contact and referral to someone, and not just a phone number to call, a direct handoff to someone, right? I also think that there's just ways that we can support teachers, right? Is by being a presence for them when they need help with de-escalating, when they need help in talking about mental health and what that looks like. One of the things, you get extra points for me. So I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and we love to look at things holistically. We cannot have healthy children without having healthy families, without having healthy communities. And the Core Collective happens to be positioned perfectly in the right location for us to do all of this in one stop with all of our partners who are willing to make community impact in the way that we discuss. It has to meet the needs of the community.
Beautiful, beautiful. Are there any parting words we want to give our viewers, Ron?
First of all, I want to thank you because, recently there's some events that have really wearing on me, and you adjusted your platform to allow a voice, and I appreciate that. As I'm a real estate developer that uses the platform of real estate development to develop communities. So I'm a community builder. I consider myself a community builder. And that doesn't happen without partnerships. And I really appreciate, in the very short period of time, getting in to identify the right partners and what the expectations are, the lanes. I mean, Ms. Fowlkes is often like, look, people got to stay in their lanes. And I've seen her where, hey, that's not our lane, but maybe one of our other strategic partners in the area, like Beyond Housing or Friendly Temple or otherwise, let's connect you with them, because at the end of the day, with her client, those kids or the people that walk into the doors of the core collective, it's about them and getting whatever they need to be in a better position. I see in a very short period of time, I've seen a lot of growth in you. It used to drive me nuts. You still do, but I've seen a lot of growth in a very short period of time. And you don't grow like that without being committed to it and without being sharp enough to be flexible enough to adjust to the situation. It's not just business as usual. So parting words, it's not business as usual in this district. It hasn't been that way for quite some time, but it certainly isn't now. The board members, I think, the support of the board members, you supporting them with the information that they need so they can support you, the communication, and the continued opportunity for innovation, because there's no prescribed method for us to get to where we're trying to go. It's not. And we've seen many examples of failure, but it's not failure, but low aim is sin. One of your frat brothers said that to me. But I think we keep our goals high and leadership. A mentor of mine said he had an acronym for leaders: lift expectations and deliver exceptional results. So continue to do that, and charge the board. Iron sharpens iron, but at the end of the day, lock arms so that we can deliver for this community.
Beautiful. One of my I love watching TV series, and one of my favorite TV series in the world is The Good Doctor. I love medical shows, and the reason I love medical shows is that it's collaboration. When you take it, when a person comes into the ER, you have a resident attendant, you have an anesthesiologist, you have a person working on the machines, you have a CNA, you have all of these people converging on one person trying to diagnose a problem. Then you got all of these same people having conversations about what the treatment is like. It's like every student in this district. It takes all of us to diagnose and to create a treatment that's suitable for this student. And that's what we're in this for. And so we have to present ourselves in such a way that we are willing to collaborate for the good. And the good are those children we stand in front of every day. You have just heard from the empowered minds of our ex-board president, Mr. Ron Roberts, and the president and CEO, Ms. Latasha Fowlkes of the Core Collective. Thank you for viewing in to this special episode of Empowered Minds, Fueling Education. My vision of academic excellence requires students to demonstrate their ability to perform, achieve, and excel in all scholastic activities. It also requires the district to maximize the development of intellectual capabilities that our students can serve others with specific developed skills. The district has to provide students with amazing learning experiences so that our students can be successful. The district must provide students with amazing academic experiences such that our students can be successful.